I guess my first question is, you've just announced that some of your members or employees that receive those bonuses after Saturday of this week have agreed to return it. Why couldn't that have been negotiated for the last 2 months? And why couldn't that information have been made available to both this committee, to the Secretary of the Treasury, and to the Chairman of the Federal Reserve?
I think there's two parts to that question, sir. Let me see if I can address them in turn. We've been working on this issue of what to do with these retention payments. We've made the information publicly available in our various 10-K filings and 8-Ks and 10-Qs. The decision I made was as much one of risk assessment as it was blindly following legal advice. The risk assessment was, we've made great progress in winding down this business, but there is still $1.6 trillion of stuff in that portfolio. There's risk that that could blow up. And if it were to explode, it can cause irreparable damage to that progress that we've already made.
Necessitating, Mr. Liddy, a further investment of the American taxpayers in Liddy with equity if we were to keep you solvent.
Would you repeat that, sir?
The risk is, if those assets deteriorate or blow up, you would either go into total destruction or have to come back to the United States government and this Congress for additional funds.
Yes, I think that's exactly correct, sir.
Right.
So the judgment that we made, in cooperation with the Federal Reserve, we treat the Federal Reserve as our very important partners. The decision we made was that we could preserve that unit and continue to wind it down in a very orderly fashion and not expose the taxpayer and the company to the risks that heretofore they've been exposed to. I know $165 million is a very large number. It's a very large number. In the context of $1.6 trillion and the money that's already been invested in us, we thought that was a good trade.
Am I to understand that you're saying that Chairman Bernanke or his designated person at the Federal Reserve was informed that you were going to make these payments and acquiesced in that decision?
Yes, everything we do in partnership with the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is at our board meetings, at our compensation committee meetings, at our various meetings on strategy, and they have the ability to weigh in either yay or nay on anything that we decide.
Why wasn't this committee informed, as you had previously indicated, that you would put a plan together and you would immediately, after that plan was submitted to Treasury and to the Federal Reserve, make us aware of what that plan was? Why did you hold us in the absence of that information and make the payments on a Saturday night?
Sir, there was no intent to deceive or hide anything. These payments were due to be paid on March 15th. We've been discussing this issue at large with many of the people's staff that are represented here today, and with the Federal Reserve since...
You purposely did not discuss this with my staff?
I don't remember, sir, whether we discussed all of the particulars of this with your staff or not. I would just like to make the point that there's no attempt to do anything under the stealth of darkness or undercover. We wanted to do what was right in these contracts. The contracts called for a payment on March 15th, and we've done that. We've been talking about this within the board and with our representatives of the Federal Reserve literally for 3 months.
And with the Secretary of Treasury?
No. The way our relationship generally works is we review things with the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve, as they think is appropriate, discusses it with the Secretary of the Treasury or with representatives of Treasury. I've asked if the Federal Reserve would like us to have a separate line of communication with Treasury or not, and I've asked Treasury. I think they're trying to get as efficient a process as possible.
Are you aware of the fact that probably the funds available, the TARP funds, will run out shortly, and the likelihood that additional funds will have to be secured by action and authority of Congress?
I am.
Then do you realize that the actions that you take at AIG and took in this precise case not only impacts AIG and the potentials of that reality occurring that you described, but it may have jeopardized our ability to get a majority of this Congress to support further largesse to provide funds to prevent a recession, depression, or meltdown? Are you aware that that's the process of your decision and how important it was?
I am, sir, although I think there's also a question of another element, and that is if something happens to AIG and it goes bankrupt or goes belly up and puts at risk all the money that has already been put into it, that also can have dire consequences. So it's an issue of, can we stabilize the AIG FP situation, run it down so nothing untoward happens there, and reach the promise of paying back the taxpayer?
Well, not to argue that point further, but you're going to serve further. Are we to assume that you're going to continue this process of decision-making and disclosure of talking only to the Federal Reserve and not informing the Congress or the American people or the executive branch of this government?
Yeah, I will do it in any way that you and the Federal Reserve ask us to do it. Heretofore, what we've assumed is that in our discussions with the Federal Reserve that they were being properly communicated with others. That appears that we need to improve upon that process. We'll do everything we can to do that.